but I'll include it in my div card ask because I don't. By the way, I actually do surprisingly disagree with you. Well, I agree and disagree with you. Div cards aren't unhealthy for the game, but there are some things that shouldn't come from stack decks. Like for example, you should never get a boss drop from a stack tank. You should never get, but yeah, stuff like that.
We'll have different pools and be worth it with different fragments. That for me, where I'm still kind of newer into the game, I can't just trivialize the Uber boss and stuff. That's very encouraging to hear. I'll be honest.
That is good to hear. I suspect there is a good subset of people who like the fact that it's just allocate a node and then they get all the access they ever want. But I do think that was the wrong call.
Same.
But I'm keen to see what people have to kind of say or weigh in on that one.
It was the wrong call.
I've seen a bit of feedback around it before, but
Uber Zero was perfect.
now's the opportunity for people to, voice their opinion on Reddit after this, I guess, and I will take a look.
Do you feel like there are a lot of work and time and money invested into specifically bosses in this case that you feel are underused for future developments? Because I feel like when we talk about introducing new pinnacle boss fights as a specific topic on bosses, I feel like there are other bosses that are so fantastically designed, way better than Dominus ever was. And when you talk about Uber boss, you mentioning Dominus, the only thing I'm thinking about is Medved, Morana, Uthred, Olroth. What happened to those? Very few people are ever engaging with these. And
especially the mirror boss one. That could straight up be such an easy Uber. You don't even need to add anything to the fight. You just change the numbers a little bit, and that is straight up a Uber. The mirror boss is straight up. I've actually never fought it on hardcore because it's too scary in Expedition, and obviously it doesn't have any loot I want, right? And that is a pretty big reason to fight it, but it's so cool. Well, I have farmed it, but I have killed it, but like, never like, it's not, you don't have a reason to farm it. Owl? I don't know. Owl is a little basic. I think Owl is perfect the way he is. Owl is a little basic. I think.
those boss rooms themselves are fantastic. The mechanics are great. People are barely experiencing them. Having access to those type of bosses, and for those of you not sure, no idea what I'm talking about, those are the bosses found in the Expedition encounters. And making Uber versions of those was something I was talking about during Expedition League. I think that would be fantastic, because they're incredibly cool designed boss fights. Yet so few people in the community ever get to experience them, even during the league, even fewer after the league.
Hey, second CD. Hidden.
I mean, ultimately, yes, I agree. It's those also cross my mind. I mean, I have mentioned the same things internally. I'm like, what about Uber Olroth? What about Uber Lycia? What about... There is a lot of that stuff, and there is room to add it.
That's good.
I think one thing that's important to remember, though, is that it is actually good to have content that few people are able to play. Like, you want to have some aspirational stuff, you know? Like, if everything is just easy to access, then, you know, like...
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just... Like, I think a lot of people, they sort of look at this, you know, only 1% of the player base will ever play this, therefore it's not worth developing. I don't think that's the right attitude to have when you're developing a game like this.
Thank you.
Because it's sort of, yeah, like, you just need that aspirational stuff. So just a random point that I thought of as you were talking.
As a new player, that's the stuff that has always made me the most excited. Like, it's actually something that, like, put me off Warframe, actually. That I think Warframe could have done slightly differently. Because, you know, I don't know what they're called, but there are some missions where the optimal thing, like, they do get harder and harder, but the optimal thing is to do them 3 or 4 times and leave. And past that, they don't give a bigger reward, right? Like, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 times that it's the optimal thing to do. Like, you do 3 or 4 waves, the invasion types, yeah. And I asked, like, what if I stay, like, I was like, does it always get harder? And people were like, yeah. And I was like, what if I stay, like, 50 waves? And they're like, oh, that doesn't do anything. I was like, oh, okay, never mind then. Bored now. Like, I love stuff like that where it's inspirational stuff. Like, even for games I don't play, when I heard, like, in Torchlight Infinite as well, like, there were, like, new bosses that, like, people really struggled with. Like, even the veteran players, like, hadn't gotten it down yet. That makes me want to play games more. Like, anytime a game has aspirational stuff, makes me want to play more. Even if I can't, or, like, even if I never am able to do it. Like, when a game has that, is the #1 thing for me. Potato difficulties? Yeah. Aspirational stuff is so important, at least for me.
And I do agree with that. I 100% agree that like the moment that all of a sudden Olroth is found outside of Expedition or in some other ways, it also makes then Expedition less worthwhile to play and do,
Right.
and less fun and less special when like it can be quite fun when the meta is to do a particular league, and and thus there are leagues that barely anyone's doing. But you can be the person then doing it, and because no one's doing it, those drops become valuable and trade and like.
Neon is my fucking spirit animal.
I mean, Ultimatum is, even though it only recently went core, is probably a good example of that, where it's like, I mean, not that many people are doing it right now, and you can see that in the fact that it's like, 7 fertile catalysts to a divine, which you could argue is due to divine inflation as well. But either way, like, you can now be like, I'm just going to be an Ultimatum player and utilize the fact that very few other people are doing it, of course, in trade leagues.
This would be even more the case, and I really want to bring this up and like really drive that point home. This would be even more the case if, imagine if Ultimatum dropped catalysts. I was about to say, imagine if Ultimatum was the only place to get catalysts, but like, holy fuck, dude, I've done like 6 ultimatums this league and I haven't gotten a catalyst from it. It should drop catalysts every single time. It should be like a good place to get them. Like that's kind of sad. Like Heist is the best place to get catalysts, even though Ultimatum was supposed to be. It drops every time though. I mean, not good enough. Oh wait, that's close. It doesn't drop good enough. Like it's you get way more from Heist. You get way more from Heist. I get so many from Heist. So many from Heist. Wave 4 and 8 are guaranteed drops of catalyst, right? But like, it's still nothing compared to what you get from Heist. Right? Like that's the problem. That's the problem. In my opinion, it shouldn't drop from Heist at all. Like, generic drops, like things that should be able to drop from anything, should be currency. And like very few things. There shouldn't be that many things that everything drops. In my opinion. That's my opinion.
And there is some fun to that. And then, I don't know, I honestly can't say what the value of the Trail Masters drops are. They might be worthless. They might be worth a lot. I honestly have not looked, but it can feel special to someone that they are.
So what should drop from Heist then? Random currency, stack decks are fine, and like the main the main thing, like Heist is so special. It is a little less special now that we lost alternative quality gems, but we have the replicas, we have tempering orbs, we have cool bases. Like that's already super special. And it can still drop things like fractured jewelry, right? Whenever something doesn't go properly core, like synthesis, like that can be part of the generic reward. So fractured, synthesized items, those things are already good solutions. But like most things should have like a very clear place where it drops, because that makes it special.
And doing Ultimatum and getting to do that boss fight because he has a drop that's worth a lot, and no one else is doing it because it's not really the in-game meta. Whereas like right now it's very much, I guess, Stygian Spires, for example, and you'll probably find that, not that it ever is really the case, you'll probably find that the drops from those are completely worth absolutely nothing.
Something I wanted to check in on as well on this topic. You mentioned it not being worth running the previous version of it, and I feel like, well, what if the regular old expedition would be the source to get access to these Uber bosses? But the only thing I keep thinking about when I was about to ask that is a core problem I think I have, which I know you, Jonathan, covered with Crip a little bit. You touched upon it, which was div cards. And I know this is something that brings back to some of the issues I know that DM you've been encountering when it comes to wealth acquisition. And that is how like stacked decks and div cards is allowing players to literally have access to fight uber pinnacle endgame bosses before anyone in a new league start has even reached the white tier maps. That is what the stacked decks is allowing us to do in the current state of the game.
Mark and I are both rather unhappy with stacked decks.
Nice.
That's probably the only thing that I have to say right now about them.
Fair enough.
Then I can follow
So
up on that.
there are issues with it for sure.
I'm gonna follow up on that so hard, because there is not inherently an issue with stack decks. There's inherently an issue with divination cards not being locked behind certain things. Like stack decks are really, really exciting, and you can still have them have really exciting drops, like Mage Blood, right? Apothecary and Divine drops and stuff are great things that you could get. Those are great things that aren't like bad for the game and are still really exciting that you can get. They could even be like, they could even be way rarer stack decks and like very reasonably have good things. It just needs to be not, they shouldn't be related to bosses at all. They should never ever drop like boss things. That's like the biggest issue for sure. That is such a large issue.
Well, like, there's two ways to look at it. I mean, yes, it was originally meant to be this like